system. It can happen just, again, regular, course of order at a council meeting. If they're selling a system, it has to go out to the public for the vote of the community. So that's what's happening here in Gloucester Township. It'll be on the ballot in November. And then here in New Jersey, there's also a terrible third option that water systems can be sold without going to the public first. So this is a piece of legislation called WIPA, which stands for the Water Infrastructure Protection Act. So a very Orwellian name. It sounds kind of nice, right? But really what it says is that if they meet certain criteria, the town council can say they don't have to go to the public, they can just decide to sell. So this is currently happening in Hopewell Township in Central Jersey, and one of my colleagues there is working with citizens to get it back on the ballot, because the fate of your water is something that you should have a say in, right? No matter what your stance is on privatization, you should get a vote. So WIPA is a terrible piece of legislation. We had to overturn it also in Salem City. But again, basically, they just need to check some boxes, say we meet this criteria, we don't have to talk to the public. So again, it can be resolution if it's a long-term lease, it can be on the ballot if they're selling the system, and then WIPA allows them to sell the system without even having to talk to the public, and hopefully we'll return that. In most of the country, it's pretty rare that water systems would be privatized. I think it's something like just 10% nationally. But here in this part of the country, in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, it's happening very, all over the place in our communities. And really the reason is that the headquarters for these companies, like New Jersey American Water, are here in New Jersey, right? So the New Jersey American Water headquarters is in Camden. So again, it's very much, kind of because they're rooted here, they're really invested in buying up systems here. So just the basics, and Peggy Gallows will be joining us to talk more specifically about the complications of privatization, but just the general main points of why selling water systems is such a problem. The first is rate hikes. So Food and Water Watch has done a great deal of research nationally on the cost that ratepayers end up paying if their sewer systems or drinking water systems are sold, and it's more than 50% increase. So again, these are for-profit companies, they're responsive to shareholders, not necessarily to the community directly. They want to turn a profit, right? So this means they're going to be raising rates, and they could be reducing services as well. I know when Peggy gets here, she'll speak to this more directly, but there's a lot of talk about, we won't raise rates at first, but they eventually do, right? So it's very much like a credit card, right? You get the low interest rate when you first open the card, and then the rates go up exponentially, right? So same thing with water privatization, right? They say they're going to buy the system, hold the rates flat for a while, but then they go up through the roof. Job loss is often a problem. So a lot of times when water systems are sold, they also lose the people that were working for the local water or sewer systems. This can mean the loss of local union jobs. And again, according to Food and Water Watch research, usually at least a 1 in 3 water jobs that's lost after the systems are sold. So we got rates, jobs, and then the loss of transparency and local control. So again, you're going to become a customer of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You might feel like it's hard to get answers from your local government. And I've been to your local council meetings, so I would second you in that feeling. But certainly even harder, right, when you're talking about a billion-dollar corporation listening to you as an individual. Hello? No, I think it's okay. Really get the same amount of information as you would once it's privatized. So I'll talk about that a little further down the road. But again, loss of local control, loss of transparency once you're just a customer and it's no longer something that your local government owns. Peggy will be talking about some of these more specifically, right? But there's some fine print to these deals that the water companies never really tell residents, and maybe don't even tell local government. But it's really important to know that they spend a lot of time and energy lobbying the government so that they can kind of exploit loopholes so they don't have to go through the usual process that's oversight by the BPU, the Board of Public Utilities. So the Board of Public Utilities really should be regulating when they can raise rates, but they've managed to pass a lot of pieces of legislation that allowed them to raise rates higher than they normally would, or again, without that oversight. A very recent bill that was passed was called RASIC, which stands for the Resiliency and Environmental System Improvement Charge. And this piece of legislation passed at the beginning of this year. I was there to speak to our state senators and oppose it. I saw Dave Mayer in the room there to support it. And basically, it allows the private water companies to raise rates for when they need to do work on the systems, but also for future work that they might do on the water system. So, which is, pretty egregious, I think, to say we want to raise rates now for work that we're going to do at some point down the road. So they don't tell you that they've managed to kind of erode all of that important oversight that BPU is supposed to be offering. They also don't tell residents that once they buy up a system, whatever repairs they're going to make to any system they own is really spread out through their customer base, right? So they just bought up the water and sewer systems in Salem City. So that means if you guys became customers of New Jersey American Water for your sewer, you would be paying also for the improvements made in Salem City, right? So again, they kind of fold it in and they just pass that cost along to all of their ratepayers. And one thing they talk about a lot, I don't think I've heard this really in Gloucester Township, but certainly in other places of, that system is old, there's problems, we have, all these kind of industries in the past that have polluted the area, so there's various, improvements that need to be made, so we have to sell the system, right? So this is something they say often, but really that's not necessary. There is funding available through the state. Through the Water Bank or the I-Bank, which is for infrastructure projects, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act also has freed up some federal funding for this. So again, there's lots of opportunities to make improvements, and again, I don't even think this is the case in Salem, but sometimes that's what they say is, you need improvements, you're not going to be able to afford it, just sell it to us. So if it's a bad deal, why does local government support it? So importantly, these are my experiences having worked on a bunch of water privatization campaigns. I think a big reason why they often want to sell is just to move it off their desk. They want to just not be responsible for systems anymore. This was definitely the case in Salem, that the infrastructure was old, and rather than figuring out how to get the funding and apply for all the money, they were just like, let's just sell it and be done. Which, while I guess that is moving it off their desk, it is also increasing rates for residents. So it's, it's really, I think, not the good government and the oversight that local leaders need to provide. I think the second point here is really what I am hearing from your local government, which is that it's seen as a windfall of cash that they can point in some other direction. So we've heard local government say, like Gloucester Township Council, that they want to use it to pay off debt, they want to fold it into their budget. But again, right, that this is kind of like taking an expensive loan. And then sometimes it is to advance their own political interests, right? So New Jersey American Water donates very heavily to our local and state representatives on both sides of the aisle, though the Democrats take more money. But again, right, that this is, going to help their career if they have a good relationship with these for-profit companies, but it's not necessarily going to help residents, again. This is a comparison of rate costs, which I think is pretty eye-opening. So you've got what you currently pay here in Gloucester Township, and then two systems that are privately owned. So Haddonfield, and then comparing to Aqua. So there is a proposed rate increase for Haddonfield. As you can see, that's pretty huge. It's going to make a giant impact for residents who are paying those bills. And I do, since I've heard a lot from Gloucester Township Council, I did want to speak a little bit more to this idea of, why you shouldn't be selling water systems as a solution for municipal debt. So here, they're kind of long, but I think are important, these quotes, because they are from local government leaders. So this is the mayor of Scranton, who inherited privatization from his predecessor, and basically said, right, they sold it as money to pay the bills, right? So again, that it wasn't really an investment improvement. It was really just to, kind of have money, right, that's being folded into the budget. And this one I think is really significant for Gloucester Township and for all the ones that I've seen, really. So this is the Inspector General of Massachusetts. The use of creative borrowing not only increases the public debt burden, it also allows elected officials to evade the politically painful necessity of balancing their budgets by either cutting back on spending or raising taxes or water and sewer rates. Using privatization to generate short-term government revenue generally produces a transfer of cost to future taxpayers rather than any real savings. So again, this is all about, let's move the money over to this side so that we can say, look, we paid down our debt. But again, right, it's basically a very expensive loan that's being taken out in order to temporarily say, look how our budget looks great. We're not raising taxes. We don't have debt. So again, these are some real examples of where this has happened and it's been problematic. I did want to speak also to this guy's role. Some of you guys might know this name or face. So there's also a lot of problematic connections between New Jersey American Water and the Norcross machine. As you may have read in the news, George Norcross was recently indicted on 13 charges of corruption. And the EDA investigations that have been happening over the past few years have really revealed the connections between the Norcross machine and various, politicians and political entities. And there's certainly lots of very glaring connections between the Norcross brothers and American Water. So New Jersey American Water received $164 million in tax breaks to build themselves a $160 million headquarters in Camden. So that's a little nice thing that we did for them. And at the time, the then CEO of American Water, Susan Story, thanked George personally for encouraging their move to Camden. There's more Norcross connections. So George's brother Phil works as a lobbyist for New Jersey American Water. The company has paid Phil Norcross's lobbying firm Optimus Partners $588,000 in the last 4 years. WIPA, that piece of legislation I mentioned that allows them to sell the water systems without going out to the public and fast-track the sale of public water systems, was sponsored by Norcross machine politician Lou Greenwald. And over the past 4 years, New Jersey American Water has donated approximately $80,000 to political campaigns, primarily to South Jersey legislators. So there is a whole political game that's going on in the background here, lots of money changing hands, and unfortunately, right, the regular people, the ratepayers are the ones who are, financing all of this. And then I didn't want to leave without pointing out this other connection. So I'm sure you guys know who that is there. Your mayor, David Mayer, works as the government relations director for New Jersey American Water, which I think is a pretty staggering thought. Every time I talk about this issue with people, they're always saying, how can that be? How can he literally be the mayor of the town and the town is trying to sell to the company that he works for? Again, just such a glaring conflict of interest. And this is from American Water's website, that they state that he's responsible for establishing and maintaining relationships with elected and appointed officials to strengthen the company's position. So, yeah, what more do we need to say about that? It's mind-boggling that this is even allowed to happen, that he's allowed to do this. And I know we talked about transparency already, but I just wanted to also flag some other, local and real-life examples of problems of loss of transparency after privatization. So again, you become customers of a monopoly, consumers of a product that you're probably not going to opt out of using. Back in 2018, Food and Water Watch had to sue the city of Camden in order to find out how many households had their water shut off, because we heard it was an alarming amount in the middle of the summer. New Jersey American Water said, we don't have to give that to you. So again, we had to take legal action. And Haddonfield has had to take legal action also against New Jersey American Water. So they just settled a lawsuit this year over severe recurring sewer backups in their house. And New Jersey American Water, again, operates Haddonfield sewer system. So again, it is hard to get accountability, I know, from local government, but much harder when we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar company. So the goal here today is both to inform you guys as well as hopefully bring you on board in saving the public sewer system here in Gloucester Township. It will definitely be a fight, and we need all hands in on this. So last year, New Jersey American Water spent over $100,000 to take over the public water systems in Salem, and that's less than 2,000 customers. So it worked out to over $50 per vote. Which is also deeply problematic because Salem's median income is $28,000 a year. So again, this is how desperate they are to add to the monopoly. So the plan really has to be, again, to get everyone on board in helping us get the word out. What I've heard is people that want to keep the sewer system public with everyone I've talked to, but we know Gloucester Township is a big place. There's lots of people that we need to reach. So I think that Dina has been already giving out forms maybe that ask people to commit to vote no. So if you could fill those out, that would be wonderful. And then there's also a little box on there to check if you're willing to volunteer. And we will talk to anyone that offers to volunteer and kind of match you up with things that you're interested in doing and that you have the time to do. So whether that's making phone calls, knocking doors, whether that's helping get the word out on your block, on your street, to your neighbors. Again, all the help we can get, we will take, and the more the merrier for sure. Yeah, sure.
We were told in the past that the wording might be tricky, so no might not be the way to vote against it.
Yeah, what we're hearing is it's going to say, should town council sell to American Water for an amount, which is $143 million. Yeah, and what we would like to have is an interpretive statement. So for valid questions, you can have just a question, but sometimes you could also have a paragraph above it. So we would like that to be on there so that people don't just see a number and say, yeah, we would like that money. We would like it to say, selling it means this will happen. Right. So, so an interpretive statement can help for every voter, but that involves some fighting with council to get that to happen. All right, I think I will pass to Peggy if you're ready. All right.
Hi there. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm glad you could just jump.
No worries. We were around. Joe was solving all the complicated technology problems. So.
You got mine. Yeah. It's just a few. Just a few. Just hit return.
That's right. Yeah, right.
Oh, okay. All right, great.
Mic is on.
Okay, I'm gonna leave this like that. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me?
Everything right?
Good. I'm good. Hi, everybody. My name is Peggy Gallos. I am the Executive Director of the Association of Environmental Authorities. Gloucester Township MUA has been a longtime member of our association. And I want to tell you a little bit about the association and what my interest in all of this is. Our association is made up of local, regional, county, and state agencies that provide water, wastewater, and solid waste service. Some do one, some do the other, some do a couple of them, but and they're all different sizes. Passaic Valley Sewage Commission and Passaic Valley Water Commission are members. Most of our members are authorities. So we were particularly interested when Gloucester Township dissolved the authority last year, and we were on that local finance board meeting when they went to take that step of the dissolution. And our concern is really market. Our market is shrinking. We have competition. So what we try to do is explain to people what the value of our model, government delivery of water and sewer service, what is the value of that? And the community has to decide once they have the information. So, so I'm representing my members who want you to understand, you know, what a great job they do. So I wanted to start with, to talk a little bit about Pennsylvania. And bear with me because it really does have relevance to New Jersey. So, you know, it's kind of a cautionary tale, but it's also kind of a hopeful tale. There's a lot of similarities between what's going on in Pennsylvania and what's going on in New Jersey. New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and forgive me if I'm repeating some of what Kate already said, so New Jersey and Pennsylvania are considered sort of the epicenter of water and sewer privatization in the country. There are a number of states, they're mostly fair market value states, which I'll tell you about in a minute, where there's a lot of this sort of activity. And Pennsylvania and New Jersey are the epicenter for, I think, obvious reasons. The corporation American Water Works, which is the parent company of New Jersey American Water, is headquartered in Camden. And before that, they were in Voorhees. They obviously have influence, and their corporate officers and employees live in these communities, as you just heard. So that's one thing. In Pennsylvania, the Aqua America was headquartered in Bryn Mawr. They got bought by Essential Utilities, which I think is Pittsburgh. I think they're based in Pittsburgh. But anyway, you know, there's sort of a concentration of power. The National Association of Water Companies, which is the lobby, which is a trade association like mine is, but they're the lobbyists for private investor-owned utilities across the country. And their executive director, or president, I'm not sure what his title is Robert Paulson. Robert Paulson, they're based in Philadelphia, and they are, you know, aggressively promoting the privatization agenda. And Robert Paulson, just by coincidence, used to be a member of the Pennsylvania Utilities Commission. So you kind of see how this all kind of can come together to make New Jersey and Pennsylvania particularly of interest to the folks who want to see more private water. The other thing is that they both have a lot of water systems. I always get a little annoyed when I hear oh, there are 50,000 separate water systems in the country, and that makes it sound like each one stands all by itself and has no connection to the other one. And actually, a lot of these water systems they may be administratively two different water systems, but one may sell water to the other. These systems are much more regionalized than that 50,000 number suggests. But New Jersey and Pennsylvania have a lot of authorities and a lot of municipal utility departments and that type of thing. You know, we all know we're all New Jerseyans, home rule state, and that's one of the legacies of that. Now, the other thing is that a lot of small towns in the Clean Water Act, Safe Drinking Water Act era, when the federal government said, we want you to start treating wastewater in a modern way. You can't just give it a cursory treatment and then put it back into a river or into the ocean. You have to do a more sophisticated process. And when those two laws, those are landmark environmental laws, and those laws came with money. In the years after, 10, 15 years after that, local communities, probably Gloucester, got grants from the state and the federal government to modernize their water and wastewater systems. So that's kind of one of the reasons New Jersey and Pennsylvania are kind of the focus of all of this. The other thing is that, and oh, by the way, I say New Jersey Pennsylvania are the epicenter, but the playbook is used all over the place. In Indiana, Indiana American, another subsidiary of American Water, thank you. Indiana American just went into their Utilities Commission for a rate increase, and they asked for over 30%. They got over 20, I don't know the exact number. But one of the interesting things about that was that if you read the document, the Public Utilities Commission order, which is them approving whatever the rates may be, they said several of the commissioners kind of almost like they're permitted to make a little dissent or comment on their own, and several of them pointed out that they're very concerned about the fact that Indiana American Water was pulling back on its availability to customers. They were making it harder for customers to contact them. And they were saying in certain places, especially places like Gary, Indiana, which has a low, moderate income, probably a lot of senior citizens, that these places, that the water system, sewer system needs to be a presence here, and people need to be able to talk to somebody. And these particular commissioners pointed out, hey, we're really not happy that you're pulling back and you're kind of trying to, I don't know, AI or customer service apps or whatever that they were using more of. And I think this is an example of the kind of thing that happens, further down the line. So, so did you talk a lot about fair market value, or should I? Okay. All right. So another big thing that National Association of Water Companies has been promoting across the country is laws that are called fair market value laws. And Pennsylvania has one. It's called Act 12. And New Jersey has one. It's called the Water Infrastructure Protection Act, WIPA. And, Kate and me and a lot of other people who have been dealing with this stuff just refer to it as WIPA. I think it should be called the Water Shareholder Protection Act because it's very good for shareholders. And there's nothing wrong with shareholders making a profit, but this is just the kind of extreme of it. So what fair market value laws do, without getting into all the weeds, they change how a water or sewer system is valued. And that means that, and they also require the entire purchase price to be recovered in the rates. So whatever New Jersey American may be offering, if they're, are they doing this under WIPA or not? Do you know offhand? Not under WIPA. Okay. So in that case, they may not be able to get the entire purchase price in the rates, but they will get, a substantial part of what they're paying back later. But the fair market value laws, particularly in Pennsylvania, it really, really drove this. Do you have? Okay. It really drove the privatization. Let's see. Okay. So after Pennsylvania got its Act 12, its fair market value law passed, and New Jersey's law is a little bit better than Pennsylvania's in that you have to kind of meet these what they call emergent conditions before you sell the system, and they're very easy to meet. I mean, they're you could drive a truck through them. They're so broad, but in Pennsylvania, they had their law was passed in 2016. New Jersey's was 2015. And that really started to kick off the privatization. And in fact, just like in New Jersey, people didn't know right away. They didn't know public systems are permitted to purchase private systems too, but they can't compete. As an example, Limerick Township wanted to sell, I think it was its sewer. I don't know if it was water and sewer, but I think it was sewer. And Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority put a bid in. So did Aqua. Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority's bid was something around 38 million. Aqua's, it was like 90 million. So while theoretically the public systems can participate, they don't really have, you know, the kind of resources. And the expectations that the fair market value laws drive, even if this sale isn't being done under WIPA, there's a certain expectation now. This is how much we should be getting for these, you know, for this asset. Look what they got. Look what they got. So there was a feeding frenzy. I mean, that's the way the Philadelphia Inquirer characterized it, that there was a feeding frenzy of privatization going on in Pennsylvania. And some of this will seem familiar to you. The same set of, you know, talking points. We're going to give you a big chunk of money up front. We're going to do all this capital work. We're going to keep the rates flat for a couple of years, or 3 years, or 4 years, or whatever it may be. But they, you know, they don't necessarily. People don't really understand the full picture. So what started to happen is, as I said, like in New Garden, they started to get sewer bills, and people started to say, what is this? You know, what's going on here? So I think that was 2016 was when that law went into effect. By about 2019, 2020, there was already starting to be backlash. There was a hearing at the Pennsylvania legislature about this Fair Market Value Law, Act 12, and the kind of uptick in sales of water and sewer systems. So people started to, you know, learn more and more. And the playbook, as I said, is very similar from place to place, and I'm sure you're getting a similar set of talking points here, right? You got a big capital, a promise to do a $90 million worth of capital work, right? Is that what it is? And then, did they say the rates are going to be flat? And for 2 years? Okay, so this is one of my little, this irritates me. They're not really giving you anything when they say the rates are going to be flat for a couple of years, because they can't raise your rates right away anyway. They have what's called a statewide tariff. All their customers in the state of New Jersey eventually will be in that tariff. Everybody. The newer ones, the ones they've just acquired, aren't in the tariff yet, because they can only put them in the tariff when they go to the Board of Public Utilities and request a rate increase. Those are called rate cases, and they are extremely complex, and they take months to determine. There's people who intervene, and there's a lot of very, very intense examination of the corporation's financials, and so at that point, usually on these rate cases, you'll see that they have a system that they acquired a few years ago, and the rate case will say, we want to include Haddonfield in our tariff 1A or whatever, which is the whatever that's called, their tariff for the whole state. So the flat rate thing, I mean, it's not that they're not lying that your rates will be flat. I'm not trying to suggest that. But they're not telling you that, well, we can't really raise them anyway, because we can't do that until you are brought into the other tariff, or until we go to the board and ask them for permission to raise your rates. So that's another kind of empty promise. And let me just take a look at my... Okay. Oh yeah, and surcharges. That's another thing. The overall picture here is that National Association of Water Companies and its members, American Water, very much part of this. They have been systematically trying for years to weaken the authority of the Public Utilities Commissions and create surcharges that allow them to bypass the Utilities Commission. And they've been very successful in doing this, very successful. So what they're doing, though, is the Utilities Commission is there, and then it's a little bit different in each state, what they regulate and that type of thing. In some states, Utilities Commissions are elected, most of them not. In this state, they're appointed by the governor, the members of the commission. So the system was put in place to make sure that the utilities provide reliable service, and that, I don't know, Home Depot does, those kinds of places. So they created this system across the country where they have utilities commissions that are supposed to be safeguarding the interests of the customers and making sure that the utility can get a profit, that they are charged with making sure that the utility can get a reasonable profit, but they also are supposed to be making sure that the rates are reasonable. So reasonable is, that's a pretty broad word. So they've been trying to weaken these utilities commissions in many places, in Pennsylvania, in New Jersey. What time is it? It's about. You want to be done by 5, or? Yeah. Okay, all right. Just like give me a high sign or something if I'm going too long, or if I should wrap up. Okay. So what happened in Pennsylvania? Why am I talking about it? Pennsylvania, as I say, people started to get these bills and say, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? The Pennsylvania Consumer Advocate, and that office, that role is to protect consumers, including utility customers. The Pennsylvania Consumer Advocate told a legislative hearing in January, that because of the Fair Market Value Law, Act 12, that ratepayers in the state of Pennsylvania have paid $1.1 billion with a B more than they otherwise would have paid for, as he put it, substantially the same service. They're paying more, but they're not really getting anything particularly different from what they had before. So this is, hold on a minute, I want to be able to see what okay. Yeah, so that was the testimony of this Cicero, Mr. Cicero. He's the Pennsylvania Consumer Advocate. New Jersey doesn't have a consumer advocate. We have something called Rate Counsel, and Rate Counsel is it's sort of the same role. They are they spend all their time at the utilities, at the BPU, and their job is to advocate on behalf of ratepayers. When our fair market value law was passed, the ratepayer advocate, her testimony was scathing. She said, this is a terrible law. It's going to inflate the cost of water and sewer rates, and that's going to come back to the customers. That was Stephanie Brand. She retired, so now there's somebody named Brian Lipman. But that's what they do. Their job is to do what the consumer advocate does in Pennsylvania. So how did Pennsylvania, things have changed a lot in Pennsylvania. And there are several reasons why. Well, you've had hearings, like I just mentioned, where the consumer advocate was tested. This is actually the second time the consumer advocate has testified at a hearing about these water and sewer deals. The New Garden Township situation really got stuck in the craw of several people who work who live in New Garden. A guy named Bill Ferguson, Margot Woodacre, and Peter Morzinski. And they formed a group called Keep Water Affordable. And they go around Pennsylvania telling people it's too late for us. They sold it, and we didn't even know it happened. And don't do it. It's a bad deal. And then there's another group called Neighbors Opposing Privatization Effort. They actually started in Norristown, and they were originally Norristown opposing privatization efforts, but when they broadened their scope, they changed. Some former regulators have been speaking out, and I just want to read you some. First, I'll read you this is a former commissioner of the Public Utilities, a former commissioner of the Public Utilities Commission in Pennsylvania. His name is William Cawley. And he has started to, and he's an attorney, so he's been filing documents and becoming quite vocal in these situations. And one document he recently filed said, Act 12 is a corruption of public utility rate making in Pennsylvania. It is completely contrary to the fair balance and public interest emphasis of the Public Utility Code and its predecessors. It is the most pro-utility, anti-customer provision ever added to Pennsylvania's public utility laws. And it goes on and on. Another person who has been speaking out in New Jersey is my former boss. I worked at the Board of Public Utilities for 5 years. And one of the retired commissioners is very, very much against privatization, and she also has spoken out. When Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority was approached by Aqua, an unsolicited bid, Bucks County Water and Sewer Commission governing body didn't put out an RFP and say, tell us, what you'd pay if we sell the system. Aqua just knocked on the door. You know what? We'd like to offer you $1.1 billion, just by coincidence, the same number. We'd like to offer you $1.1 billion for your water and sewer system. And the commissioners were going for it. And it was the same kind of thing. All of a sudden, there was this discussion about selling the system. And people got very upset. And Jean Fox, who is a New Jersey regulator, she wrote to the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority and said, don't do this. She said, the $1.1 billion bid sounds wonderful, but it isn't. It is not a windfall. It is merely a very expensive and unnecessary $1.1 billion loan that gets paid back through rates. I'm not alone in that opinion, and more, I don't have to read you all of that. So that's another factor. People like Cawley have been vocal in Pennsylvania, and then of course the other thing that's made people pay attention in Pennsylvania is now that the law has been in effect and the purchases have started to happen. There was a few years before, it was kind of a delayed response, and then people started to see what it really meant. So that's where Pennsylvania is. And as a result of the people who started to get upset and the speaking out, the PUC recently adopted some regulations to put some guardrails on the fair market value transactions. I don't know whether maybe it was a little bit more window dressing than anything else, because they were getting a lot of political heat for what they did. But anyway, they did attempt to soften the impact of Act 12. And then, and at this point, there are about 20 bills in the Pennsylvania legislature to either entirely repeal Act 12 or to amend it or reform it somehow. Okay, yeah. Yeah, this is my favorite one. Yeah, so if you if you take away anything else, if you take away nothing else rather today, please look at that guy under the pipes. You see the pipes? You see the poor guy that's New Jersey ratepayers. The important point to understand, when these water and sewer systems get purchased, they are rolled into the statewide, oh, sorry, I keep doing that. They are rolled into the statewide tariff, and then the effect is cumulative. So maybe American Water is buying Gloucester Township, their sewer, and they're going to do all this capital work. And okay, that's great. You know, we're getting this capital work done and everything. So, you know, maybe that's not so bad. That's kind of a good thing. But then next year, American Water buys Mount Laurel, or American Water buys Vineland, or every town, every system that they acquire, the cost of that acquisition gets spread across all of the customers. So, you know, each particular acquisition, you might not make a whole lot of difference, but this is not, you know, these are actual towns, you know, Haddonfield, Long Hill Township, Somerville, Manville, City of Salem, which Kate knows well, and with each acquisition, the burden on the taxpayers on the ratepayers gets greater. So, so if you take nothing else away, just understand that you are being asked, if you become an American customer, you are being asked to support capital work that's going on in Bergen County. Doesn't benefit you in any way. And when they acquire the next South Orange, which is one of the ones they're aimed at, that's what their customers are helping to pay for that. So just that's really the unfair part, and that's true whether it's a fair market value a fair market value purchase, or a non-fair market value purchase, or non-WIPA purchase. The customers, the only way the corporation can improve its position is by acquiring more customers, and so that's and this is the other real point, and then I'll stop. The capital work. They are allowed to make profit on the capital work, and they didn't used to. And then, I don't know, like 10, 12 years ago, they started saying to the BPU, was like, you know, these systems, everybody has to start fixing their systems. And they were like, yeah, you know, but we really need an incentives to do this. Yeah, but it's your system. You have to take care of it. Your responsibility under the Utilities Commission laws is that you have to provide reliable service. So fix your pipes. No, we really need some incentive to do that. We really need an incentive. So they got them to let them get return on investment on capital work, and so, you know, that's why they want to offer you as much, you know, capital work as they can, because that's where, you know, that's where the money is made. And, you know, that's really the other piece of it. They want to have the customers, because that's a steady income, you know, revenue source for years and years and years to come, and they want the capital work because they can do that. And when they were discussing some of this at the board, there was a very, very well-regarded guy named Howard Woods, who unfortunately passed away. And he said, if you allow them to have these kinds of incentives, they are going to skew their planning towards capital work when there might be operational efficiencies that they could implement that would save money. But they're going to, you know that expression, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail? That's what it is. They're you know, they want to do everything as capital work, so. All right, I'm going to be quiet now.
Does anybody have any questions?
So everybody can hear you, the question. Somebody else might have the same question, so.
All right. Does the utility need the approval of the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities? They do still need approval.
Yes,
So
they do,
is
but
it after if it gets approved through the vote,
Right.
then the public utilities
Right.
gets involved to approve?
right. The Board of Public Utilities rarely would deny, you know, they have to be, I don't know what they would have to do, but they're rarely told that they can't do it.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
In the bid, it says American Water wants to do $90 million of capital improvements.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, there's a bill that would allow them to bill the ratepayers in advance of doing that work. And even if they never even do the work, they can bill in advance of that.
Yeah, that's well, one of the tricks is the surcharges. They don't just charge rates, they keep going to the board and say, well, you know, we need this surcharge and we need this surcharge. And so that's a surcharge that they got the legislature to pass. I don't know why it needed to be the legislature, and because in other cases surcharges were approved by the board, but I think this one was such an egregious broadening of this type of thing that they had to get the legislature to approve it. And it was passed by the legislature. Privatization of water and sewer, by the way, is not really a very partisan thing. There are people on both sides of the aisle who, you know, who think it's a fine idea.
So if I understand this correctly, the bill was passed.
Yes.
So that means, for example, right now, our bills are $46 a quarter. If we end up getting, say, I don't know, $40 bill from New Jersey American Water as the base rate, they could bill that $90 million on top of the $40 rate?
Oh, yeah, now, that's a kind of a level of financial acumen that would be required to answer that question is, you know, I don't have that. I mean, I think when they talk about $90 million, they're talking about what they're going to spend over
But that would not
period of-
be covered under the BPU, correct? According to this bill, they can bill that in addition to.
No, to be fair, the bill you're talking about is called the something like that, RESIC.
Yeah.
RESIC. It's RESIC or something.
Right.
So with all of these surcharges, they have a DSIC, Distribution System Improvement Charge, a WISIC, Wastewater System Improvement Charge, a lead service line replacement, a PWAC surcharge. I don't remember what PWAC does or what that's for, but there are a lot of different surcharges that they do. And they are permitted to assess the charge or put the charge on the customer, and then they retroactively, they afterward can go back to the board, and the board can, you know, they kind of have to ask forgiveness rather than getting permission ahead of time.
It's like booking a hotel, right? You book to have one rate, and then you get all of those little fees, right?
Exactly. Surcharges on electric bills in New Jersey, surcharges are like 50% of the bill at this point. And New Jersey American, the water customers, it's about 30%. Surcharges make up a big part of people's bills, and nobody ever talks about surcharges when they're, you know, having these conversations. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have questions? Hold on. Hold on, so everybody.
I came because I saw the lawn sign. Is there anywhere to get the lawn signs? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
Everybody could get a lawn sign on the way out the door tonight.
Yeah, you know that Kate and the Food and Water Watch, they're the ones who really, know how to do the ground game and community, this type of event and everything. I've been spending years reading obscure utility commission documents and trying to help myself understand it enough so that I could explain it to people. And that's another problem. The utility, you're going to hear, oh, our rates are regulated by the Board of Public Utilities. Don't worry about it. The Board of Public Utilities is, as I say, they go in, they ask for, they're asking for a 50% increase in the rates of Haddonfield. Mount Ephraim, I think it's a 45% increase. Egg Harbor City, these are all acquisitions. Egg Harbor City, I think it's 15%. There are a couple on the list that aren't too bad. In fact, there was one that was 0, and I don't know why. Maybe they just had very high sewer rates to begin with. But yeah, this is so the other shoe has started to drop in New Jersey because Haddonfield, Mount Ephraim, they're all coming into that statewide tariff, and so they're all going to see that big increase. The other thing is you go from quarterly billing to monthly billing. That's another big change, and that can be disruptive. And also fire hydrant service. And I don't know a lot about this yet, but they can make a lot of money from the fire hydrant service from the town. And they may give the town a break for a few years, like the same thing like they're saying your rates are going to be low. They may say, well, we're not going to do any fire hydrant billing, until 3 or 4 years from now. But the town will be paying for fire hydrant service, which it may never have paid for before. Excuse me, I'm sorry. That's water. I forget which one I'm dealing with sometimes. That's water. Forget what I said about that. You're a sewer system. So yeah. Anyway.
Anybody else have questions? Anything? Nope, we're good?
All right. If you
Okay.
didn't fill out a form, we would love to. We do have forms. If anyone has not filled out one yet, I can bring some around.
It's an animation too.
And our next step, again, is definitely going to be to do a whole lot of outreach, and we would love to have all of you involved. I was just talking to a woman who had to leave, who just moved here recently to Camden County to Gloucester Township, and she saw somebody at Gloucester Township Day, and she got a flyer, but she said, is the town going to be mailing us any information about this? And no, they're not going to. As Peggy said, they try to push it through. So it's really up to all of us to talk to as many people as possible. It's going to be on the ballot. We don't know if there will be that interpretive statement, that paragraph that explains to people what it means to vote yes or vote no. So people might just see a number and say, should Gloucester Township get $143 million? And people who are not informed might say, yeah, sure, why not get $143 million, not knowing what that's going to mean for your bills and for the state of your public utility. So if you haven't filled out a form, come grab one. You can get a lawn sign. Denise will hook you up with a lawn sign. We know a lot of people are looking at that and beginning to think about the issue more because of those. And anyone that fills out the form, I will be in touch, and we'll talk about how we can either pull you into some of the canvassing or phone banking, or even just give you some info to give door to door the people on your block, right? So every little bit of outreach helps, and everyone that we can inform. So thanks everyone for coming out. Really glad to have you here.
Before everybody goes, I just want to remind everybody before you go that selling our sewer is not going to fix the problem that got us to where we are, where we're $70 million in debt. So just keep that in the back of your minds. Yeah, I guess we can through the friends. I don't even know what it is. I don't know what.
Hey, folks, can I just have, before you leave, can I just address one issue that they're not talking about here? All of the work that they have done and all the information that they've provided for us is what we're going to use to fight this thing. But the bigger thing that we need, and we need it from all of you and your neighbors, are donations. We need money to fight this because information has to go out throughout the town. We need people to hand out flyers, so that's, you got to go out there and walk your neighborhoods. They'll be organizing that. But secondarily, you've got to send mail out to our neighbors. That costs money that until we raise it, we don't have it. Which means, we've got, I have no idea, the MUA might know how many ratepayers we have out there, but it's thousands, they'll say 40,000. You've got to get information out to them, and we need to raise money. The organization does. I mean, not me personally, but the organization does. So we're not set up yet. I understand it's going to be set up. I talked with the MUA guys, and we'll get that information out, or maybe we might have to have one more meeting. But there has to be things that happen before September 21st. And does everybody know why it's got to be done before September 21st? Vote by mail ballots in Gloucester Township, well, actually the whole county, go out September 21st. If we wait till after that, I'm telling you right now, from my personal experience in this town, it's too late. It's too late because the council, mayor and council, will make sure that their information is in front of all of those voters, and they have a bank of about 3,000 already. It happens every election in this town. So that is a critical date for this. August 9th, by the way, their ballot question has to be into the clerk's office, August 9th. But September 21st, we have to have information to as many thousands of people in this town who are going to be affected. And let me also say this. For all of us senior citizens in the room, many of us, well, I don't, but many have a senior tax freeze, and you get all that, right? That's wonderful. This is outside of the freeze. So senior citizens who are on tight budgets, just because there's a lot of us in this room, senior citizens are going to get hit the hardest with this. Because when they raise that sewer rate, $47 it is, I pay it annually, it's like $170 I think for the year. All right, so $170, I pay it annually. Now you're going to triple that, and you've got to find that money. So all that said, whenever they start raising the money, please, send some checks in, because they're going to need the money to get the word out through the mail. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
And then also, everybody too, my name's Keith Gibbons, this is Joe Allen. We also do a podcast in town, so it's, if you go onto YouTube and look up Restore GT, yeah, it is the #1 podcast. But there you can share that. Like, so the donations, like he was saying, are important, but getting information out and the ground game of us just talking to other people and explaining what we've learned and being able to share that link with them. Like, we have several episodes on there that talk specifically on this. We have recordings of this here where you could share today's meeting or past meetings that we've had. Being able to share that information to give people understanding of what this is. Like, yes, they see the yard signs, and I mean, I can tell you, so many people come up and ask me all the time, can I get one of those signs? What's that even about? I see other people have one, I want one. And they don't even understand what it is, but be able to educate people in what this all means to us, and that it's not just getting us windfall of money, that we're actually taking out a whole nother loan, basically, for more than, if we're in debt for $70 million, and there's $143 million is supposed to save us, we actually just put ourselves $143 million more in debt. We didn't save ourselves. So anyway, again, just go to the, on YouTube, it's Restore GT, or you can go to Save GTMUA, which is on the bottom of every one of the signs that you see out there. So please just send people there. We're trying to put as much information to give people information that that we have to be able to share. So again, thank you. I don't know if there's, yeah. Our township is about $70 million in debt. No, they don't want you to know that kind of thing. But every dollar we get from this sale has to go towards paying that down first before anything else can be done with it.
That there is the council meeting August 8th for comments only.
So there's a special meeting on August 8th. Their deadline to get the referendum question in is the following day, so that's conveniently timed, right? But yes, there is an opportunity, so anybody can go out there. And what they're talking about, the unlimited time, is it's a public hearing that they cannot stop you from talking. We can go till 3 in the morning or whatever it is if people have questions. They might limit you and say you have 5 minutes and then your time's up and you can come back up again. But yes, you can go speak as long as you like, ask as many questions. You might not get the answers, but you can ask as many questions. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for coming. Please educate your neighbors, friends, relatives. And when we do get to the point where we can't accept donations, that'll be on the website. You can find